A 22-year-old third baseman just hit 6 home runs and drove in 13 runs in 5 games for a team that's fighting to hold one of the American League wildcards. And I haven't heard anybody talk about it. That's where we start. The standings don't lie. The box scores don't either. I'm Pete Dwyer. This is the Division Line from the Baseball Nerd. 6 divisions, 30 teams in one weekly breakdown of what the numbers actually say. So who actually moved the line this week? Let me tell you what baseball looks like on June 28th, 2026, because it doesn't look anything like anyone predicted. The team leading the American League West right now is the Texas Rangers at 42-42. They're dead even. They're a half game ahead of Seattle. The AL West leader is literally a 500 baseball team. It's not an indictment of Texas. They went 5-2 this week. They swept 4 straight from Toronto, and they're playing 500 baseball. But this is an indictment of the entire division that has collectively refused to separate itself from the pack all season. Look at the American League Central Division. The White Sox are tied for first with a winning percentage of .524. The same franchise that lost 121 games 2 seasons ago. They went 4-2 this week. They took 2 of 3 from Cleveland and then 2 of 3 from Kansas City. The feelings take out there in the community is still, well, let's wait and see. The numbers don't support panic on either side. This isn't smoke and mirrors. They've got real production for young players and a bullpen that's been doing its job. If you're not paying attention to the White Sox, you probably should be. And then the AL East is groovy too. Tampa Bay leads the Yankees by a half game on a winning percentage, both sitting at 48 wins. But look at the last 10 games. The Rays are 7-3, and the Yankees are 3-7. The same record, but they have completely different trajectories. That division could look very different by the All-Star break. And then there's the Dodgers, because, of course, they have the best record in baseball at 54-30. They went 5-1 this week. They swept the Twins and then took 2 of 3, of course, from the Padres. On paper, everything is fine, but something is happening in that clubhouse we're talking about. Dalton Rushing is the primary catcher right now, and with Will Smith out, his rookie year is getting complicated quickly. It started with a hard slide into Giants' Jung-Hoo Lee, trash talk that went viral, then an illegal slide against Pittsburgh. This week, it was Shohei Ohtani. But here's what actually happened. Rushing accidentally entered 2 pitches simultaneously into the PitchCom device. Ohtani crossed up on a 101-mile-an-hour fastball. Minnesota scored 3 runs, and afterward, Ohtani confronted Rushing in the tunnel. Then Ohtani took over his own pitch calling from the mound. The manager had to address it publicly. Rushing said it was embarrassing, and he's been hitting himself in the dugout, struggling visibly with the pressure. He started the year with a batting average of .341, 7 home runs in April. He's hitting .218 in June. The numbers take, the Dodgers are good enough to survive this. The roster depth is real. But a catcher losing confidence and losing communication with your best pitcher and making headlines for the wrong reasons on a team built for October, that's something to track. The postseason version of this problem is a lot harder to absorb than the June version. But Rushing isn't going to be here for the postseason. And moving on, Atlanta went 1-5 this week. They got swept by San Diego and then dropped 2 of 3 to the Giants. The lead over Philadelphia is down to 3 games. A month ago, it was 9. The numbers still say the lead is manageable, but the direction of travel is worth watching. This is the Baseball Nerd, and we talk about the spark scores. The first one again this week is James Wood. He's been on top of the board for weeks, and he's earned it. His spark score is 84.4. His weighted runs created plus score is 157, and he's got his barrel rate at 24%. Washington is actually in the National League wildcard picture, and Wood is the reason they're being taken seriously. He's the best hitter nobody's talking about at the MVP level. but we're going to get to that in a minute. Nick Kurtz from the A's is right behind him with a spark score of 83.8. The A's are 1.5 games out of the American League wild card, and Kurtz is carrying the offense. He and James Wood are the two most consistent hitters in baseball by this model, and they're both on teams fighting for their playoff lives. Now the big mover is Junior Caminero. He's from Tampa Bay. He jumped to third on the spark board this week, and here's why. In 5 games, he went 8 for 19, clobbered 6 home runs, knocked in 13 RBI. In a single game against Kansas City on June 25th, he hit 3 home runs for 6 runs batted in. That's not a good week. That's a historic week for a 22-year-old. And the part that makes it even more interesting, Tampa Bay is leading the American League East right now. The Rays went 5-2 this week, and every one of those 13 RBI meant something. This isn't a guy padding his numbers on a bad team. These were runs that mattered in a division race from a player who just turned 22 years old. The model has been building toward him for weeks. This week, he delivered. And now on to the fade score. We're going to go quick on the fade this week because the names are familiar. Jeff McNeil, still there from the A's. He's still on top of the fade board with a score of 58.5. His barrel rate is 1. He's on the same roster as Nick Kurtz. The contrast is stark. It hasn't changed, and something needs to if the A's are going to make a serious push to October baseball. Number 2 on the fade list is Cedric Mullins from Tampa Bay. His fade score is 44.9. His weighted runs created plus is 67. He's 33 points lower than the average player, and he's still declining. He's on the same team as Caminero, who just had the week we talked about. One guy is carrying the offense. The other is one of the reasons they still need carrying. Marcus Semien just went on the injured list with a left hip flexor injury. He will come off the fade board this week, but he was fading before he got hurt, which was something our model was already flagging. But Marcus Semien has got to get it together. This is not what New York traded for. Marcus Semien is a monster defender, but with the bat, he's got to get back in touch. Okay, this is what we've been waiting for. Jacob Misiorowski from Milwaukee. In our contact suppression rate model, we call it CSR, he's sitting at a 94.9 this week. Okay, for the context of it, the model stops at 100 in theory, and anything above 90 is historically rare. Misiorowski has been above 90 for weeks. The gap between him and the second best pitcher in the National League right now is bigger than the gap between second and 10th. CSR has picked a top 4 Cy Young finisher 6 years running. It's not pointing at just anyone. It's pointing at Misiorowski with a level of confidence that I didn't expect from this model. Now we also track regression, upside regression, and downside regression, because it matters when we look at forecasting. What I mean by that is there are pitchers whose ERA is way better than what their actual stuff says it should be. Like we talked about last week, we do track regression. There's upside and downside regression, and it matters when we get into forecasting. But what I mean by that is there are pitchers whose ERA is way better than what their actual stuff says it should be. Some of those names are getting real Cy Young buzz. I'm not going to give you the name, but if you're hearing somebody hyped for Cy Young and nobody's mentioned regression, look at their ERA versus their expected ERA. That gap should tell you everything. Now it's time to start talking about MVPs. It's that time of the season, and it's going to start happening quick. James Wood leads all of baseball in bases gained, my metric, for total offensive value that accounts for position, situation, and actual run contribution, not just rate stats. He's ahead of players with a better WRC+, better batting averages, and more name recognition. The reason is simple. James Wood is doing damage in situations that actually matter. at a position that doesn't get the DH discount, and he's doing it consistently. That's what bases gained captures, the batting average, and even weighted runs created plus misses. If the MVP vote happened today, Wood would be the correct answer. The feelings vote goes somewhere else, but we will be tracking both. The prospects of the week, there's two this week, and they tell completely different stories. The first one is Colt Emerson in Seattle. This kid is 20 years old. He's a shortstop. He's top of the prospect board with a score of 63.3 out of 100. He had a tough week this week. He went 2 for 15 with 7 strikeouts. But what we need to look at and what we need to hold on to is he's batting in the lineup every day for a Mariners team in the American League West race. A 20-year-old shortstop in every game matters. The strikeouts are real. Won't give him that, but so is the situation. In that lineup, in that race, being there is part of the data. The second one is Bryce Eldridge from San Francisco. He's 21 years old, 6'7". He's a designated hitter. He had a quiet week, kind of like Colt did, 2 for 16, no home runs. He's a power ceiling player on a team that's out of the race. So the stakes are lower and the development is the story. Bryce has the time to learn how to play the game, and he will advance for it. Colt Emerson is playing on a team that's contending right now, and his play matters. Emerson is learning to play in a pennant race. He's a 20-year-old kid. Which one is better for them long-term is genuinely an interesting question. The model has Emerson ahead right now, and the circumstances are doing the work. There's going to be some games that matter this week. The first ones that I'll be watching are the White Sox at the Guardians, starting on July 2nd. This is another American League Central battle, and they're doing it again. They're tied for first. This series will tell us if Chicago is real or if Cleveland wants it more. This one will be one worth watching. The Dodgers and the A's starts today. Los Angeles is the best team in baseball at 54-30. The A's are only 1.5 games out of the American League wild card, and Nick Kurtz remains locked in. This is a good test for the A's. The Cardinals and Braves starts today. Atlanta has been sliding badly. They're 1-5 last week. St. Louis is in the National League wild card race. And if the Braves are going to stabilize, this is probably the week to start doing it. Keep an eye on what's happening in the American League East right now. The Red Sox just finished a 4-game set with the Yankees. Great games. Tampa Bay is 7-3 in their last 10. The Yankees are doing what the Yankees do and trying to take it. See what happens, but this is a race that you're going to want to watch. That's The Line. New episodes drop every Monday morning. Like, follow, and share. Subscribe to The Baseball Nerd on Substack. The recaps, standings, and box scores are always live at thebaseballnerd.com. See you next Monday.